something, dragon guy!
Is Ragnarok really that hard to remember?
Hey everyone, Dr. Zeo here again, and today we're here to talk about Power Rangers Dino Fury Season 2, Episode 10, Losers Weepers. We have one more episode to go until the mid-season finale, and yeah, this episode's pretty good. I'd say it was pretty good. But as always, let's go ahead and we'll talk about the summary, likes, dislikes, conclusion, and then any questions of the week I may have. So this is an Ion and Izzy focused episode. The episode actually opens up with them rather than at Area 62, surprisingly enough. And the episode opens up with the two of them riding not riding, but racing their bikes in the middle of the woods. Ion accidentally makes Izzy crash, and then they crash, or she crashes next to a Humvee that is for Area 62 itself. Shock and awe. Of course, not much comes of this exactly. Ion ends up apologizing for accidentally making Izzy crash. Izzy gets mad because she doesn't think that it was exactly an accident, and she also ends up getting her bike ruined. So she's understandably mad about this. Ion also asks, "Hey, what is Area 62?" And Izzy gives us a brief explanation in that it was a military base facility that got shut down years ago. She doesn't actually go more in depth than that. I would have expected her to go into more in depth, but maybe it was a super secretive military base and we're just not ready for those answers yet. Again, Pop, I know you were in this episode. You could have said something. Pop. But yeah, so she ends up finding a chest and calling finders keepers on it, and she opens up the chest to find a nondescript collar. She ends up tossing this. Ion finds a chest himself, calls finders keepers, and sees that there's a ton of money in there that he does not want to share with Izzy because they're both petty. They end up teleporting back to the base. They have their argument. Ion decides to teleport and go on a shopping spree. Meanwhile, back at that truck, Mucus pops up, puts on the collar, and the collar makes her grow giant. She's all Mega Mucus, and some birds end up bothering her, and then the collar runs out of energy and she shrinks. She ends up bringing the collar to Void Queen, tells Void Queen, "Hey, I've got this collar that can make monsters giant. We can use this, or I can use this to stomp out the Rangers." Void Queen's like, no, honey, you're not going to use it. What we're going to do is I'm going to summon a Sporix beast called Flapnarok, aka Dragnarok's sister. I was very happy about this, and I'll get into my likes about this section here in a second, but she summons Flapnarok, gives her the collar. Flapnarok ends up growing big in the middle of Pine Ridge. The 5 Rangers, the main core team except for Ion, because Ion's not answering his communicator, end up going into town. They get blasted by Flapnarok. So they end up calling the Megazord in 2 configurations. The Terror-Free Zord was a battle formation, and then the Dino Fury Megazord Smash formation. Why they did this, I don't know, but Flapnarok is saying that I'm going to go destroy New York City. So Izzy uses the Terror-Free Zord to take down Flapnarok, and then they combine into the Ultrazord to battle her. They get a few hits in before Flapnarok one-shots them, knocks them all out of the Zord, and destabilizes the Megazord configuration, so that breaks apart. Then before she can do any more damage, she shrinks because the collars run out of energy at this point. So now it's the Rangers versus Flapnarok. Izzy figures out that, hey, it's the collar from before that made you grow big, so we gotta take that collar. Flapnarok summons some henchmen, which keep the Rangers at bay just long enough to transport herself out of there. Then the Rangers go back to the base, kind of regroup and figure out, okay, how do we take down these monsters who can just grow big on demand like that? We need to figure this out before she can have a chance to recharge that collar. They tried calling Ion again, who's still not answering because he's on a shopping spree and took off his communicator. Meanwhile, in the shopping plaza, Pop sits by Ion, who's looking pretty sulky. Ion's reflecting on his shopping spree and how he treated Izzy. So he ends up talking to Pop. Pop basically tells him that, hey, being materialistic, going on a shopping spree, that's not going to solve the actual issue. It's going to make you feel better in the short term, but in the long term, it's not really going to do anything. So Ion ends up giving all the stuff he bought away to people, ends up giving Pop that fly jacket. Okay, Pop's going to go on bring that to disco times. And then the Rangers back at the base are talking about, hey, how can we defeat Flapnrock? Sol ends up pitching the idea of using the Primal Ultrazord, the Primal Ultrazord they used back 65 million years ago. Zeta was understandably very apprehensive about doing this because the last time they did that, they figured out it was a very unstable Zord configuration, and it ended up getting his teammates killed. Him and Ion are the only ones who barely escaped from that encounter. But Ollie and Solon say, hey, it's been 65 million years now. Solon probably learned some new techniques, and we can use, we can put our heads together to kind of stabilize the Ultrazord formation. So they end up doing that by redoing some things with the Dino, with the T-Rex Champion Zord, and using the Terra-Free Zord's coolant to help stabilize the configuration. But in order to complete the process, they need the Mosa Dino key, which Ion obviously has, and he's not answering his communicator. So Izzy goes and teleports to the shopping plaza to talk to Ion to figure out to find him and to make amends and bring him back to the base. So they do that. Ion briefly apologizes for not answering his communicator. They teleport back to the base. Meanwhile, back at Area 62, Mucus has a collar now, and Void Queen's like, all right, Mucus, you go charge up the collar. Mucus is like, why do I have to? Why can't she do it? And Void Queen threatens her. She says with that little finger thing. And meanwhile, she had blown Mucus up earlier in the episode because Mucus didn't want to give up the collar. And this is the second time Void Queen's been threatening to Mucus, so I'm feeling a bit of mutiny here eventually, because Mucus still doesn't know what happened to Void Knight. Earlier in the episode, they had mentioned, hey, we can't find Void Knight, and Void Queen's like, hey, don't worry about Void Knight. We need to focus on destroying the Rangers right now. And that's when Mucus comes into play. But Mucus goes to charge up the collar, and then now we have Flapnrock back on the back in Pine Ridge. So the Rangers regroup. They form the Primal Ultrazord, and they get into a pretty good Megazord battle. The Megazord has some super speed techniques, and they throw her through mountains, they battle her undersea, they throw her into space, use their final attack, and blow her up against the moon. And it was a pretty dope battle. But anyway, they teleport back to the base. Ion apologizes for not answering his communicator, apologizes to Izzy for being a jerk. Izzy also apologizes to him. And then Solon brings out the bike that Ion used some of the money to get for Izzy. And then they end up having a nice little race at the end of the episode, and that's pretty much it. So let's go ahead and talk about my likes for the episode. First and foremost, I absolutely loved the fact that Void Queen didn't remember Ragnarok's name. And even though you would think that she would know it, on some level, she knows these monsters' names. She did it on purpose. And I love the fact that they're keeping up the running gag of them not knowing or caring about Ragnarok's name. That was funny. Secondly, the fact that Ragnarok had a sister in general was great. As I mentioned in my video about the stone triplets, I love when these villains have family members, because I love that there's a little bit more depth to them and that there's that familiar relationship. They're fighting. They might not necessarily be fighting for something, but they have something to fight for. Flapnrock can fight for the revenge of her brother, or the Stone Triplets can fight for the revenge of their fallen brother. It adds more depth to these characters. I always dig that. I also like Zato staying on brand about being apprehensive about forming the Primal Ultrazord. I mean, again, it makes sense. He wouldn't want to do that because he doesn't want to endanger his new team of people. Plus, if he did that and everything went haywire again, then Earth's left doomed. Like that's game over for Earth. Like there's no coming back from that. But yeah, additionally, I also liked how they all came together, or how Ollie and Solon came up with a plan to stabilize the Ultrazord. Again, Ollie has shown himself to be very resourceful with the technology in this season, so of course it makes sense that he's going to help come up with the idea to stabilize the unstable Ultrazord configuration. And one more thing that initially I thought would be a dislike is Ion constantly being irresponsible. It's been a running gag of Ion having to learn lessons of the week because he's somewhat irresponsible. And I dig that actually. I actually dig that consistency because it reinforces the idea that Zeta was in the right 65 million years ago on Ravcon to not trust Ion's judgment about releasing the Sporix beast, because he knows Ion by that point. They were best friends, so it makes sense that he wouldn't necessarily trust him on that big of a matter. Something that's very, very important to their people. And flipping things over to Mucus, I like that when she grew big, the the what's it called? The birds are bothering her. I just like the vocal delivery from the voice actress. Again, Mucus is one of my favorite characters this season, and it's largely because of how good of a job the voice actress does with her role. Even Mucus wanting to get revenge on the birds for bothering her was just absolutely funny. Additionally, I like the fact that because she has this collar now, once she gets recharged, she's all ready to go against the Rangers. I like the fact that it gave her the confidence to actually go up against the Rangers. Excuse me. Um, 2 episodes ago, I think it was, when they were looking for when Void Queen and people were hunting for Mucus, or not hunting for Mucus, when they were hunting for Void Knight, the fact that Mucus actually went up against the Rangers and put up a pretty decent fight was beautiful, and to see that carried on here and her actually having courage to go up against the Rangers now that she has more power is fantastic. Like, again, I don't want Mucus to die, but her having the courage to go up against the Rangers, it's perfect. It's good character development there. Additionally, I liked when when they were going to try and get the collar from Flapnarok, how the how the 3 Rangers were all rushing toward her, and then Izzy and Javi understandably see that this isn't working, so they decided to teleport right next to her. Like, that was smart. That was a great use of teleportation that we don't really see too much in this show. Of course, it doesn't work because the henchmen are still able to. Well, no, Flapnarok actually used a tail whip to throw them off. But just the fact that they were being resourceful and using the teleportation rather than trying to bum rush her was absolutely perfect. Absolutely perfect. Finally, I like the Primal Ultrazord fight was dope. Like, again, Dino Fury's had some really good Megazord fights this season that have given us different locations and just spiced things up. And the fact that the Primal Ultrazord has super speed, and they threw Flapnarok through all those mountains, and they kicked her into the water so that, because again, they have the Mosazord, so they can fight underwater. They're not beholden to fighting on land or even in the sky. It's a good touch. It's a very, very good touch. It gave me like Dragon Ball Z vibes, and that was cool. It's not something I expected from a Megazord fight, even if the effects were cheesy. I also like the fact that they tossed her, or they blew her into the moon. Like, it was a cool destruction for a Spork beast you don't really see too often. I wonder if they got her Sporks. I assume that they got her power up Sporks, but yeah, it's still a weird thing to do, I guess, if you still need to grab that. But let's go ahead and talk about my dislikes. The first one was changing the name of the Primal Ultrazord's final attack. So at this point, we've seen what happened 65 million years ago. We've seen that unstable Megazord battle. We've seen them use the Primal Extinction Blast. But here we see two attacks from the Primal Ultrazord. The first one being the Primal Triple Blast. For whatever reason, they changed the name of that attack. And then the actual final attack is the Primal Ultra Blast. I don't know. It's just me. It's a personal gripe. It's not that big of a deal. But again, I like the Primal Extinction Blast. It just sounded more dope to me. Again, small thing, but I didn't like the fact that they changed the name. Plus, I don't know. This is more of a gripe on Ryu Soldier itself and not necessarily Dino Fury. But I didn't really like the final attack in general. Like, the fact that they summoned the rest of the Zords and then they just had them do a generic blast wave just seemed boring. Like, the Primal Extinction Blast just looked dope as hell. And the fact that blew like a chunk out of the earth was super cool. And I could not wait to see how they were going to mitigate, or how they're going to plan around the fact that blast is so fucking powerful. But whatever. Again, it's just a small gripe for me. A bigger gripe, though, is that the Rangers didn't start with the Ultrazord, like with the Terra Freeze Ultrazord, or whatever it's called. Despite that thing having wings, like, I understand that they needed to grab Flapnarok from, when she was flying, so of course that they used the Terrazord for that. But that Megazord has an Ultrazord configuration. Like, why do the Terrazord individually and then form the Ultrazord? Like, that didn't make any sense. Again, I understand Ryu Soldier footage and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, it wasn't logical. It didn't make any sense. And again, I'm starting to think that Power Rangers might be better without having to abide by the Sentai footage. So I'm very excited to see where things go if we do get an entirely original, no Sentai footage season. Because I'm wondering if these Megazord battles and some of these more weird decisions will make more sense. Yeah, in conclusion, yeah, I liked the episode. It was good. Wasn't great, but it was still good. It was an enjoyable episode. They had plenty of funny moments, so again, I liked it. But let's go ahead and talk about my questions of the week. First of all, will Void Queen transform Tarek into a Sporix-powered monster like herself? Earlier in the episode, we actually saw Void Queen who has Tarek in her stasis pod. No, he's over here screaming to be let out and whatnot. And we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if she's going to pull the lever and infuse him with the Sporix power and turn him into a Sporix powered monster like herself, or if she's just going to kill him. Like, we know that was her original plan. She wanted to kill Void Knight / Tarek instead of capturing him, but it seems like things have changed for her. She's now captured him, so what's the goal from here? Secondly, what exactly was Area 62 doing? Why did they have that collar? Why did they have such like a case of money? Like, the money part didn't make any sense. We know that they were doing some sketchy things, so the collar does, but they were doing some like spooky things, as Pop Pop put it. So the collar makes sense, but the chest of money does not. It implies that maybe the spooky things that they were doing maybe weren't exactly ethical, and they're being paid to do it. Paid hush money or whatever. But yeah, I'm excited as always to hear more about what Area 62 was doing, get some more backstory there. I expect to hear that, if not the next episode, then in the second batch of episodes that we get. I guess late summer. Who knows when it's going to happen, but whenever it happens, you can expect my review for those batches of episodes. But yeah, that's all the time we have for today. Until next time, thank you also as always for watching. Stay masked up, get your booster shots, your vaccines, be safe as always, and just have a good week and stay safe. Peace.